what's going on, my friends? It's Dave Sharpe. Welcome to Wake Up Legendary. You guessed it. We have yet another amazing guest this morning, and I am, so thrilled to talk to her. She's new in the game. She's changing her mindset. She's starting a new chapter in so many ways, and I'm just thrilled to have her on. Kelly, welcome to the show.
Hi, Dave. Thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's truly my pleasure. Now tell us where you're calling in from.
I'm calling from Canada and Nova Scotia, actually.
Wow.
Yeah.
So cool. Such a global thing we got going on here. People all over the world. Are you amazed that you're now connecting with people from different parts of course, Canada and around the world? Did you ever see yourself being a global girl like this?
Absolutely not. No. I never saw myself on social media, let alone doing this. So, yeah.
Wow. Really? Really interesting. So tell us what led you to Legendary. What were you looking for? Have you found what you were looking for?
Absolutely. And of course, much more than that. So, like most people, I was looking for more money. And for me personally, it was a way to make more money from home and spend as much time as I could with my kids. And so I found a girl on social media. I was just scrolling through, filling up some time in the evening. And once I saw her once and clicked on her video, of course, I started seeing her more often. And then I watched her for quite a while, for weeks or maybe more than a month. And then I decided, I'm going to look into this a little more. So I'm a planner and researcher by nature. So then I started doing my own research. And once I had convinced myself that it was a real thing, then I was all in.
A planner and a research by nature. That's good. I like when people do their due diligence. They go looking for all the dirt and I would assume thousands of people have, tens of thousands here in our community. And that doesn't bother me because you should do that, especially in 2023. There's a lot of craziness going out there on the internet. Everybody really should know who they're getting into a relationship with. And I'm not specifically always talking about romantic. I'm talking about however you're choosing to spend your time. If you're going to spend your time with someone or a group of people, absolutely know who they are, know what you're getting into. And so what were you skeptical of, and what did you discover that was true for you entering into our community?
Well, strange enough, I had gone back to school a couple years ago. During COVID, I was juggling a lot of stuff. And then when the world paused, had a moment to breathe and decide what I wanted to do moving forward and what I wanted my life to look like. So I decided that I wanted to work from home or anywhere that I could possibly work from with still making an income and spend as much time with my kids. So I actually went back to school and I took digital marketing. So taking that course, it was great. It was hard. It was all new to me. My instructor was older than I was. I hadn't been in school for 20 years. There was all this homework and technology that I wasn't familiar with. So I was a digital marketer and I learned about SEO and SEM and all of this stuff, but I'd never heard of affiliate marketing. So when I saw the lady talking about affiliate marketing, I was like, well, why don't I know about this? I should know about this. But really, I did know about it. I just didn't know what it was called. So I had read the blogs and I saw the clicks and I wasn't realizing that was how people were making their money. So I had to figure out that I really did know what it was and that it was a real thing, and that I wasn't just wasting my time or money trying to learn more about it.
Yeah, interesting. So you had well, this is great. I mean, and we're not going to bash your marketing education here. That's not my role. That's never my position. But tell us, since you had that experience and then you've had this fairly unconventional education experience, and especially since both of these experiences were fairly recently, what were the difference between the two?
One was a lot more, I had to put in the work because I had to put in the work to hand in an assignment and get the grades. And at that time, I really was putting in the work and I wanted to learn, because previously when I had gone to school, I could memorize things and spit it out and regurgitate it on tests, but I really wanted to know what I was learning this time so that I could actually do it. And so the same with the course, when I went back and decided I was going to do this affiliate marketing and learn everything I could about that. It was like I was learning everything step by step during the course. And I was also looking at other people, how they were doing it and how they were making it work for their life. So it's really interesting because I was like always digging a little bit deeper, where before I was doing what I had to do and I wanted to learn and I wanted to do it. But this time I was like, I want more. I wanted to learn more about it.
Yeah, so interesting. And I think that's so common, right? When we're trying to get a grade, sometimes we don't realize that we don't really know something until we've actually done it in the real world, right? So as great as an education at a university or something like that can be, a lot of times, like you've talked about, it's like, gee whiz, for example, as people can turn into, I call them career college students, because it's safer in the classroom, right? It's safer to just stay there and just kind of keep learning and not really have to go out and apply the skills. And so that's why it's, for me anyways, it's difficult to, really to see somebody say, I'm going to business school. And it's like, well, you're learning about business. And yes, that is a school, but you don't really know something and you are not going to really know how to handle the various things that are going to come your way until you get out there and launch your first business or work under somebody, not as just, taking orders, but using critical thinking skills and actually taking a little bit of risk. And so being a wonderful student sounds like you are, and I can recognize that because it does require you to memorize stuff, be able to take tests, all that. What has it been like for you to then, take this curriculum and then begin to apply it? Was it a bit of some people say culture shock. Was it a reality shock for you? Did you realize that, oh, wow, it's more than just knowing information. I need to also deal with my mindset, my limiting beliefs, all of those kind of things?
Yeah, it was really scary, and so scary for a lot of reasons, because you mentioned the mindset. And of course, if you don't believe you can do it, then you're not going to be able to do it. So that's as easy as that, really. If you think I can do this, then you're going to do it because you're going to figure out a way to do it because you know you can do it. So maybe it's one thing didn't work, but you can pivot and try a different way to do it. So when I first started on social media, I went on TikTok because TikTok seemed like that was the way to go. And more than that, I didn't think I knew anybody on TikTok. So I was like, if I go on TikTok, it's okay if I like mess it all up and everything, because I don't know anybody there. I'm like a mom. I have a teenager. Like it's safe. It's safe for me over there just to mess up and play around. And I was having trouble actually getting my funnel all set up, and it was frustrating me. So I was like, I'm just going to take a break from that, and I'm going to come back to it, but I'm going to start posting some stuff. And of course, one of my videos started getting a lot of views, and then I started panicking because I had nothing set up on the back end of it. So I just kept going back and forth trying to figure it all out. But yeah, just posting on social media and showing my face, it was so scary. And I didn't know how to make a video online. It was taking me hours to make one video and editing it and chopping it and doing voiceovers and holding my phone. Anyway, it was a big learning curve. I didn't know how to do any of it. But I still thought it was really kind of fun because I was learning something more and I was seeing some results. So all of that was fun, but a huge learning curve, and with technology as well. So yeah, I wasn't super tech savvy, but I did it. I got it all figured out.
Now you mentioned, and you're talking very clearly about, some of the limiting beliefs, the mental and even emotional, however you want to categorize them, limiting beliefs that you had, and you said them. They're very common. They're very normal. I want everybody to hear them and everybody to not feel like you're the only one, right? You said, I'm not good on video. I'm not tech savvy. These were the things that it sounded like you were telling yourself and were holding you back. You were even stopping, and I'm going to stop doing that, and I'm going to go over here. Do you now realize that those really were limiting beliefs and that you can be tech savvy or at least know enough to be dangerous? Do you realize that you were kind of just telling yourself you weren't good on video? Because right now you look wonderful. You're coming across very clearly. And this is the hardest thing of it all, which is doing it live. There is no do-overs. We don't get to edit anything, right? Do you realize that, or what do you tell yourself now? How have you evolved that from that limiting belief being something that literally stopped you in your tracks to now what do you tell yourself?
Well, now I've done it. So now I realize that you've done this, you can do it again. And even when I was struggling with it, I kept thinking, next time I do this, it's going to be a lot easier. And so I was struggling through it and I was trying to figure it out. And once I figured it out, I was like, oh, that won't be nearly as hard next time. And I have gone back and done things again. And I was just like, oh, it's so much easier the second time. So I really was struggling the first time, but I did it and I worked through it. And when I've gone back to do it again, it's way easier.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. That's so simple and so practical. I love that answer because you're right. Once you've done something, you know it. That's when you can really confirm to yourself that, okay, I know this, right? I think that so many of us have a tendency to want to just overload ourselves with information. We kind of say it's information overload and it's like it's something else or someone else or it's the course we're going through. But the truth is that my experience is when I'm info overloading myself, I'm dealing with some sort of a fear of applying what I already know. And because I usually know enough to be dangerous. I usually know enough to at least pick, for example, with the videos, right? I know enough to at least pick the dadgum thing up and hit record. And then it's not that hard to post a video on social media, but I'm not ready yet. So I tell myself things to make myself feel better. Then I go out and say, well, let me take this other course or let me do a few more YouTube universities or whatever it is. And I'm procrastinating, implementing sort of what I already have. And over the years, I've personally realized that I don't need to be the expert at everything. I just need to know enough to kind of get started or be just dangerous enough to kind of not, to just be able to launch. And then much of my learning is actually going to come as I go. Are you finding that too?
Absolutely. It's from the doing part. So what would take me forever to do, editing videos and things like that. And part of my struggle as well was I was trying to watch other people's videos and I really liked what they were doing. So then I would try to do something similar to what they were doing. And of course, not thinking at the time, they've been doing this for way longer than I have. They've been where I am and now they're there and I'm just on my journey there as well. So if I had to just kept it simple and stayed where I was at that time, I would have grown naturally instead of struggling along the way so much.
Yeah, comparing your day one to their day 365, right?
Right. And I think we do that so often.
In everything, don't we?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's such a common thing. The other thing that we do that's a little bit of a deeper kind of thought or just human nature is that we compare our insides to other people's outsides. So for example, we compare the way that we feel, which might be a little scared or hesitant or whatever, to how other people look on social media.
Right.
When they're uploading their highlight reel or their best video that they finally did after 3,500 tries, and we're going, they don't look scared. They don't look, hesitant. And again, if you think about that, we really do that in all areas of our lives, because we also too have the ability to put on our best foot forward. We also do have the ability to make a good first impression. But instead, in the process of kind of cutting ourselves down, which is really also human nature, you mentioned the comparisonitis. How do you deal with that sort of internal desire to maybe still want to compare yourself and look at how are you dealing with what I call comparisonitis now that you know what you know and have the experience you have?
I think now I'm much more at ease at where I am. So I'm comfortable telling my story now rather than just telling a story to tell the story. And I'm getting a little more vulnerable, a little more personable. I think I'm being more honest and real. And it's not only coming across, but I'm feeling so much better about my content that I'm actually putting out there, because I know it's real. And I know like it's helping me share that story and other people who are struggling with the same things as I was.
You just touched on something very powerful. And I often call it the therapeutic value of this, which is not really why we're doing it, but it's an added benefit. But you said if it's helping me to share it, then there's a good possibility that it's going to help other people. And that's kind of what I'm finding. Can you say more about that? Can you define in your own words and with your own experience how it's helping you to share it?
Well, I guess to some extent, I always feel like if you share vulnerability, it's kind of a weakness. And so you never want to appear weak or that, I'm really struggling. It's kind of like when everybody says, "How are you doing?" "Oh, I'm doing great." Meanwhile, there's all this horrible stuff going on in your life, but you're not going to share it with them. You only share it with like the one or two people in your life. And it's not that I'm like on social media sharing all my dirty laundry. It's not like that. But I'm sharing enough of my story that people know, like, I'm not just sharing my highlight reel. Like, I do have not great stuff that was going on in my life and that I've overcome, or I'm learning how to work with it. Like, life isn't Instagram reel, highlight reel. It's not real life. And if I was pretending it was, then people see through that. They know, like, I'm a divorced mom learning how to co-parent. I'm like working. I've gone back to school. Like, we're living life. Life isn't like all great, but some of it is pretty great. But there's some like struggles along the way as well. So I'm sharing that and why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I think like that is helping me be more vulnerable and share like my insecurities and my weaknesses. Voicing them is just making it easier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned something like being divorced, and that's something that comes with like a lot of shame for a lot of people until we start to talk about it out loud and realize, damn near almost everybody's been divorced at least one time, or their parents have, or this or that. And same thing with me and my drug addiction, right? Like when I came online, I was and there's so much power in this, right? You just shared something vulnerable, then somebody else has the desire to share something vulnerable. This is vulnerability in action happening right now. And your vulnerability and your story and your mention of something that you're going through that's difficult, triggered a thought of mine and a desire of mine to want to give you something. And I think it's oftentimes a standoff, right? It's a standoff in real life, but also on the internet, to where when people pull up on your socials, they're kind of like, I ain't telling you shit, you tell me. And then when you start opening up, it's like, wait, okay, well, I'll tell you something now about me since you've shared something about you. And again, I felt the same way back when I came on the internet back well over a decade ago. I was struggling with the idea of letting people know where I just was, which was pretty homeless, pretty addicted, and pretty lost, pretty broke, pretty broken. And, it took a guy named Jeffrey Combs, who's a sales trainer. He's quite a bit older probably now. He was, I don't know, in his 50s, 55 back then, maybe. I don't know exactly. Just an odd guy who was just an inspiration to me, right? Kind of had a weird way of communicating. I was kind of attracted to it. And I just heard him one day talk about being a recovering alcoholic. And I was like, get the fuck out of here. Here's this guy who I thought, and I heard other people talking about as this great sales trainer and all this. And then I heard him share about that. And I was like, you gotta be shitting me. Is this something this guy talks about a lot? Is this something that this guy lets people know? Because for me, I'm trying to hold on to this thing like it's like a nuclear bomb that if I let out on the internet, I'm going to get canceled, basically. And that was even before people were getting canceled, right? I was afraid of getting canceled in the future. But it just set me free to kind of go and on a live webinar that I had that very day. I went and shared my story right away. Like, I was bursting at the seams to share more. I was bursting at the seams to talk about my life and be more vulnerable. I just didn't really know how to do it. I didn't really have an example, because especially back then, and it's not like decades ago, but it was over a decade ago, people were not as vulnerable as they are now. Vulnerability was not as cool as it is now, right? And so I can so relate to that. And so anything coming up for you right now as I'm kind of talking about this and you're thinking about your journey of sort of sharing and coming out of your shell a little bit more, the therapeutic value of it, or the response that you've gotten from people and how it's been surprising to you?
Well, I think it's interesting how I mean, people don't go into marriage expecting to get divorced or wanting to get divorced. No one like you, no one's goal is to be a drug addict and homeless. But once you overcome that and figure out how to make your life positive after that's over, people are there to support like the success of you overcoming something. So while they're like, that's horrible that you're getting divorced, or it's horrible that you're in this situation, people are also there to support you during it and to celebrate when you succeed and you're like living a better life afterwards. So it's that journey of coming out afterwards. And I mean, the growth that happens that when you're in like a crazy period in your life and you're like trying to figure out everything out and how things are going to work and all of this stuff, the growth that happens during that period, it's so crazy that you can never go back to who you were to start with anyway. So there's just so much growth that happens in coming out the other side, and people have been very supportive. Of course, there's always like those few people that have something nasty to say on the internet, and you're just like, ugh. But now I'm just like, whatever. Like, obviously you're a sad person, so just carry on. And it's funny because if I do respond to those people, there's like nothing. It's crickets afterwards. So they have nothing to say back. They just wanted to get something off their chest and throw a little dig. But yeah.
Yeah, we can be so, at least initially, before we pull the curtain back on the Wizard of Oz and realize what's behind the curtain. You're right. We're so afraid of those comments and those criticisms from people, at least initially. And well, we should be. We've had bad experiences. For example, when we were kids and somebody said something mean and nasty to us and we didn't have the knowledge, the life experience that we have now, that did sting. It did hurt. It was really painful when we weren't included in something. And there can be some PTSD from childhood with those experiences. Every experience, my friends, we need to give ourselves a little bit more of a break, because even witnessing a car crash is a traumatic event. You don't particularly have to be in the car crash to experience trauma. Just driving by a car crash can be traumatic. And so if we think about back to our childhood, for example, and thinking about various events and situations that happened and into, elementary school, middle school, high school, a lot of times we carry that fear with us for the rest of our lives. And as we become adults and we start taking risk, like you're talking about, we realize that the people who are saying those kind of things, as you just said, are never there to stand their ground after they've said it. It's always a hit and run. And there's so much esteem and confidence that we build from standing our ground and realizing that, those type of people who are making any sort of criticism, anybody who's not celebrating our journey and our heroic story of our lives, are literally like cockroaches. When you turn the lights on, they scatter. And that also helps me. It's helped me to face anything and everything and not be afraid to go through difficult things in the public opinion, if you will. And people even look to me now, I would say, for sort of as a role model, if you will, for how to deal with difficult situations. I never asked them to. I've only just realized this recently, but since the very beginning of me doing this, starting my marketing career, I did take little risk with sharing things, and it did appear to be superhuman, right? But it's not. It's really not. It's actually been extremely therapeutic to me. For example, one of the ways that I've stayed sober was by announcing and declaring that shit right out on the internet, and then not wanting to not be sober anymore because I just told thousands of people. So there can be accountability in it as well. How have you become less accountable to coaches and gurus and people that you're learning from, and more accountable to your audience and the people that you're serving?
Well, I think just a lot of it has I've changed. So when I watch the content from people that I used to really love their content, it doesn't resonate with me anymore because their story is their story and I'm not in that story anymore. So I think now, because I've been doing this for a little bit and I am getting more comfortable sharing my story, I like sharing my story. And so when I go watch their story now, I'm just like, okay, they're on their path and I'm on my path, and I'm happy that they're being successful, but that doesn't relate to me anymore. Their story isn't where I'm going. So now I'm happy to be on my journey. I'm happy to be sharing my story. And I hope that somebody else will see my story and be like, I'm going to follow her journey for a while.
That's so beautiful and powerful. And I often say this and have realized this myself, is that the person whose story you need to be most inspired by is your own. That's the story that you need to be most not, this particular person on social media that you love watching their content, not this actor or this athlete or this musician or this artist or this or that. I mean, this is great. We should accept and welcome their stories and they can be powerful and inspirational. But what I have found is similar to you is that I no longer want to sit around and only be just like a viewer, like in the peanut gallery, like just watching in the stands. I want to be in experiences, in relationships where there is a two-way street of sharing going on.
Yeah.
Imagine this. I'm just sitting here talking right now, and you're talking, but you're not, or you're talking, but I'm not sharing anything back with you. I'm just asking you questions, and there's no comments. Everybody's just sitting there, and they're just doing this. Mm, mm, mm. That's the most uninspirational, unenergetic type of situation I could think of. And so often we find ourselves doing that, sort of like watching TV, right? We're sitting on the couch and we're watching, quite often you know, some fictional story where somebody's acting, and we're having kind of like a make-believe experience. And what I think is the most addicting in a positive way for me, it's sort of like going to the gym. It's sort of like beginning to take care of your health after you maybe were doing drugs or being unhealthy for a long time. What is addicting and has become extremely healthy for me is this sharing thing that I get to do with people on the internet, just like you and I are doing right now, where I'm giving you something, you're giving me something. There's an exchange of energy versus just sitting there watching somebody passively. Does that resonate with you?
Absolutely. I think when you're just sitting at home watching TV or scrolling on your phone, it's just numbing. You're just like going through the motions or watching TV and kind of like zoning out, even though the TV is on. And yeah, it's absolutely mind numbing. And part of that is when I started seeing that girl on social media and I was just scrolling through and I'm just like, this is silly. I shouldn't be sitting here scrolling through when I could be digging into it. I could be learning how to use this time better. I have this time. Like, I shouldn't just be sitting here numbing my brain, not really doing anything when I could be making some money.
Yeah, when you could be like figuring out how to turn your mess into a message,
Yes.
just like she did, right? And your struggles into your strengths. Because my friends, we all have, when we're first coming on to into marketing and into doing, what we teach here at Legendary, and really any business, this is marketing. You're dealing with a mess. Now, I don't mean a big old pile of poop. I mean a puzzle, a mess of Legos, right? That you need to figure out how to construct something and make something out of it, right? And that's such a great point, that so often, we do get hypnotized by other people's content and watching them and looking at them as celebrities. And all the while, we could be doing that for our very selves, because everybody's not going to be an online marketer, right? Everybody's not going to take our challenge and go through our education and learn what we're doing. There's always going to be only a very small percentage of us, and there's going to be a larger percentage of consumers There just is. Everybody doesn't have, this is the thing that I need everybody to know, is that we're not looking to bring we don't have an unrealistic expectation that we're going to bring 8 billion people into Legendary and everybody's going to become an online marketer. It's just not going to happen like that. So there's always going to be a group of people that are, and they're going to be the larger, that's going to be the consumers that are not going to want to do what we do. But if you're watching somebody's content and that does pass through your mind that, maybe I could be making some dadgum money as I'm sitting right here, right? Mm-hmm. That's your cue. That's the universe, God, whoever you want to believe, is gifting you that thought, because everybody doesn't get it. But the universe has gifted you, or God has gifted you that thought. You are a chosen person, that seed was planted for you to see that in that certain perspective. And that's a gift. That's a gift to have that. Hey, maybe I could do this. Hey, maybe I don't have to waste time on my phone. Maybe I could be making some money with my phone. And then we sit in that limbo period of, oh, can I, right? That's the procrastination. Yeah. So talk to us a little bit about you. I think you did say you procrastinated. What is your procrastination advice now? What have you learned about procrastination that you may not have realized before?
Well, I think everybody is different, obviously. Like I said, I'm a planner. I research. I do it. Like I do that for everything in life. Like, I mean, sometimes make spontaneous decisions, but I like to know what I'm getting myself into, especially, and as silly as it sounds, I mean, the challenge is $7. I didn't want to waste $7 on the challenge.
Sure.
So I wanted to make sure that was real and I was going to get my $7 worth, and that I wasn't just going to be like scammed, I guess, as I wanted to make sure it was a real thing at the end. So I did my research and I checked it out. And so once I'd done that, I'd been watching her for a while. And then of course other people started popping up. So I watched the video, I clicked on it, and then I left it like in my checkout. Like I didn't check out. And I was just like, oh, and I slept on it for the night. And then I came back. I'm like, all right, I'll do it. I'll go for it. But there was that procrastination. But then once I started watching it, I was just like, yes, like, okay. It was just so inspirational and showed me like what I had to do. And it made like everything clicked. I knew what I was supposed to be doing. I knew what the next steps were. It made sense. Like I mentioned before, like the blogs and the links, like it made sense in my brain now how people were actually earning their income doing this. Yeah. And it was like, I was starting to see how I could do the same thing. So I was just like, oh, like maybe this is what I want to do. And like so many people at the beginning, I was one of them. I didn't want to show my face on social media. I didn't want people that I knew to see me. And like I mentioned, I started TikTok because I thought nobody would see me on TikTok. So it was about 2 months before I decided to go on to another platform, simply because I didn't want people to see me. So I was just like, I can do these things. I could start a blog. But then once you start seeing the opportunities out there, you're just like, oh, like there's so many things I could do. I just really had no idea any of this existed. And part of me, like I said before, was skeptical because I figured I should know about this. I had just gone to school and learned about it, and I didn't know about it. So I was like, ugh.
I love it. You know, you reminded me of a great analogy that I like to share with people, which is once you receive this information, it's like putting on the marketing shades. And now suddenly, it's like you can see, right? You can see, oh my gosh, this YouTube channel that I've been watching that's just so entertaining that I just thought that, you know, they were just kind of maybe that they were just, they had like a TV contract or something, or I have no idea. Maybe they're just uploading the content just because they're nice people, you know, and they just want the best for us all. I realize now that I receive this information and I have the metaphorical marketing shades on. I realize, well, dadgummit, they're making a whole damn pile of money doing this crap. And this is exactly how they're doing it. Holy smokes, you know? I mean, gee willikers. It's like I am, you know, I need shades because I'm blinded now by the opportunity that I'm seeing here all over the internet. Or, you know, the influencer on Instagram, you actually spend a little time, you know, digging through their going back to the beginning, realize their videos suck too, realize when they ask you to click their link in the bio, it's not just a friendly resource that they've created because they've got nothing but time on their hands. It's a freaking funnel. They're building an email list. It's a dadgum affiliate link, for Christmas sakes. You know, it's like, geez, I can see. It's like somebody turned the lights on,
Yeah.
I'm still doing that. I mean, we get into this, you know, people nowadays, as this artificial intelligence and everything has come out, there's so many people who are writing their emails and scripting videos and doing all this. And yeah, a lot of people are using that, and people are just thinking that they're coming up with all that information on their own. And it's like, well, if you only knew, right? If you really only knew, if you had your marketing shades on and you could see through, then you would understand that there's so many resources out there for you to use, but you have to be resourceful. You have to be resourceful. And so as you started to create videos and evolve your message, how have you evolved your resourcefulness of coming up with content ideas? At first, I know your resourcefulness essentially was just looking at other people and essentially, I'm not going to say copying, modeling. We all do it. Inspired by. Okay.
Yeah.
Just every artist is inspired by something.
Mm-hmm.
How have you evolved your content? How have you become more resourceful coming up with ideas?
I think life shows me every day something. I don't know. We were out for a bike ride the other day, and my oldest son, it's his birthday today. He's 14.
Oh,
he's biking down the road. I'm like,
nice.
man, his bike is too small. We just bought that bike. And so I'm just like, I'm going to need to buy him a new bike next year. That would have stressed me out before. I was been like, okay, so he's getting big. The bikes are going to be more expensive now because everything's getting more expensive. The bigger he gets, he's not going to stop growing. Need to buy this new bike. And so like the next video was like, my son needs a new bike. This would have really stressed me out. Now I know how to figure that out. I can put this together. And like going for a bike ride, which should have been like, pretty carefree in the moment, cheap excursion could have been thrown off by like, oh my gosh, like I can't even afford to buy him a bike anymore. But now I'm just like, I got this. I can figure this out. We can make this happen.
I love that. I love that. I did the same thing. I've got a funny story. My wife got into an accident one time. Somebody T-boned her car. Now this isn't the funny part. I'm going somewhere with this, so bear with me. Broke her neck. She's in the hospital, right? Now I'm just starting with the marketing stuff. She's totally fine now. So the store is totally fine now. But I go back and I'm, going back and forth between the hospital, and I wrote a damn email about it. I turned it into content, right? And of course she's on my list. She reads it in the hospital and immediately calls me and said, "You son of a bitch," too soon, right? But I was beginning to see and how I could take ordinary situations from my life that were my own experiences, and I could begin to share them and sort of just use really simple little kind of philosophies or reminders to help guide how I was doing that marketing. For example, never tell a story without making a point. Never make a point without telling a story. Why? Why is that such a great marketing principle? Well, because people only retain a very small percentage of the facts and information so if you're just telling them about what you think they need to know, it's, there's going to be a whole lot of probably resistance because they're probably going to go, who the hell are you? And what, who are you to tell me this? Tell me what to do. Right. Whereas stories, you remember stories. I mean, I just literally told you a story from 12 years ago, and I can remember it and tell it just like it was yesterday. Stories are the way in which we've learned and communicated ever since we were babies. We had stories read to us. We now read and share stories from generation to generation. As a matter of fact, stories have been shared in books and for example, religious organizations for thousands of years, right? Stories stick to our brains. They stick to our hearts. And so never make a point without telling a story. Never tell a story without making a point. Another one was, I didn't know how to tell my story, right? And there's all these complicated story formulas out there. And, we've got quite a bit of story selling and telling training throughout our curriculum. But I mean, one very easy framework that I could share with you right now was the very framework that was shared with me when I walked into my first treatment center, had 3 months clean back in 2008. And the guy that I was with doing the meeting with said, well, tonight you're going to tell your story. My stomach did a nuclear bomb went off in it. My heart was in my throat. And I said, I don't have a story, nor do I know how to tell it. He said, yes, you do. What it was like, what happened, and what it's like now, my boy. Mm-hmm. Now get on in there. What it was like, what happened, and what it's like now was a very simple little framework that 13, 15, I mean, God, that was 2008. What is it? You do the math. How many ever years later, I'm still sharing that and using that simple little framework to be able to communicate, my story and use little situations throughout my day in my life as content, and not just a story that I'm just telling on social media to be funny or to gossip, but I'm using that story to make a point. And you sound like you're finding your way with that as well. Do you find that to be more fulfilling than doing just the voiceover videos or the various different things that you were inspired or saw somebody else doing?
Of course, when it's yours, you're always way more invested in it and involved in it. And so telling my story and I could tell one part over and over, but telling like different parts of the stages, like what you said, like before, now, and my goals, what I want it to look like in the future. And also the other thing that I'm enjoying sharing is like the different parts of affiliate marketing that people can actually do. Like, it doesn't have to be like, you don't have to copy what I'm doing, but like, these are the different parts. And I know there's lots of videos about like the different ways that you can make money online. And I did some of those videos too. And I've tried some of them myself because I research. I wanted to see what it was like. And some of them are like legit. You can actually make really good money if you're willing to invest that time, but there's only so many hours in the day. So I wanted to obviously spend my time the best way that I thought it could be. So it wasn't going to be those ways. So I'm sharing like things that I feel more connected to, that resonate with me more.
Yeah. And if, I think one great way to gauge if like the content that you're creating is going to land well with other people is, and you said this earlier, you said this, that if I'm not inspired by it, like if I don't have fun talking about it, then it's probably not going to be like come across as like very inspirational or fun. You got to think about the exchange of energy when you're creating content. It's such a simple thing, but think about somebody who's telling a story at like dinner, like you're out to dinner with friends. And if they're just like, yeah, this happened the other night. And it was really funny. I got into the car, the car wouldn't start. And, I realized that silly me, I didn't put any gas in the car, right? Like versus, yeah, like I got in the car the other night and I don't know where my head's at, but I mean, I literally turned the key over and it would not start. The damn thing was dry as a bone. Who has a car that runs out of gas in their own freaking driveway? Like that excitement and the energy that you have, the passion that you have when you're telling the story. And everybody's passion doesn't have to look the same. I also want to acknowledge the fact that you don't have to have a certain personality type to be successful with this. You don't have to be loud. You don't have to, your delivery doesn't have to look like somebody else's delivery. That's where we can get back into the comparisonitis. But have you also begun to find your sort of groove, like your way in which is comfortable for you to communicate. Like I experience you as very like comforting to listen to, kind of nurturing in a way, very mature, calm, clear, like you know who you are. Are you starting to realize more of who you are and your delivery style and owning that more? Not talking about the content, that I'm talking about the way in which you're delivering it on the internet, even if you're soft spoken. Like obviously I'm much louder and obnoxious than you are. You're sitting here so, delicate and calm and soft, right? And that's wonderful. It's a beautiful contrast, and I can see that people would follow you and feel very comforted by listening to your content. This is all me just projecting and assuming. How do you see the evolution of your delivery, and are you embracing it more now?
I am. And I think you kind of nailed it right on. And I mean, making content now, it's funny because you talked about the energy. And I feel like when I'm feeling like a certain way, I make different videos. And so and even the music I'm choosing now, I mean, the trending audios, there's a reason people do that, but it doesn't necessarily resonate with me. So I've found like a couple artists that I really like, and I've like saved their music, and I'm using that sort of music a lot more just because I find it feels more like me. It makes me feel more authentic, and what I'm putting out there feels more like me. And it's funny, I have a video I did, and I was just like, ugh, I just feeling like, ugh. Anyway, so the video, I forget what it was, but it was something funny, and I just threw a pillow, and it's just because I just felt like that's exactly what I felt like doing. And so in the video I did that, and it was like really well received. I was just like, this is so funny. But to do it in another time when I wasn't feeling that, I'm sure it wouldn't be received the same way, because it would just be like kind of faking it or whatever. But in the moment I was just like throw my arms up and like just kind of biff the pillow, and it was just like the mood I was in. But like, yeah, for me to play certain types of music, it would just really be for all the wrong reasons. It wouldn't be authentic to me. It would be like to get the trending audio on certain videos and stuff. So now I'm just like, I also really think it's fun to do those videos where someone's saying something and to put something different on the screen that resonates with what you think. And some of them I think are really funny. So I do some of them and I have a great time doing them. But others like are things that I just wouldn't say in real life. So I might think it's funny, but I'm not going to put it on my social medias just because it's not who I am. So yeah, that has totally evolved, because earlier on I was playing the music that I was just like, I'll just put it down really quiet so maybe nobody can hear it. But yeah, now I've kind of evolved and I'm like more of who I actually am.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I love that. And this is really the foundation, the stuff that we're talking about right now, my friends. Even if you understand the mechanics, and the mechanics, I promise you all, are much simpler than you may think they are right now. For example, the tech stuff, funnel setup, learning how to, film, edit, and upload videos, all that stuff. Like kind of once you get the hang of it, you'll be fine. But it's the dynamics, the things that we're talking about right now, the things that we so often talk about on this show are the dynamics, the part of the iceberg that you don't see. The mechanics are just the tip of the iceberg. A lot of times we fret about the mechanics and we focus so much on them because they're kind of the obvious things. Like, it's like, okay, I got this like thing. It's like the funnel. That's the thing that matters, right? I got to focus on that. But it's like, if you could like have a bridge page funnel that sucks, that like doesn't have the most compelling free giveaway on it, your copy could just be like kind of lackluster, sort of watered down. But if your vibe and your content is really who you are, and people are really resonating, they can tell that you're being authentic, they can tell that it's real, what you're saying is powerful to you, and therefore it will be powerful to others because you're saying what's true and powerful for you. People will go opt into your funnel, man. People will go, everything else doesn't have to be perfect because you've already hooked them so well on the front end of the funnel before you even ask them to do anything. Right? As a matter of fact, a lot of times if your front end content is you're chumming the waters, for as the example of what I use in the fishing formula. Like you're targeting the right people, you're targeting where they hang out correctly, and you've got the right chum in the water to get everybody frenzied up. They will go crazy trying to get more from you. They will want to go into your funnel. They'll want to learn more from you. You won't have to hardcore slam dunk call to action them and be like, link in bio, link in bio, link in bio 1,000 times, and like sound like, you know, like you're going to abuse them, through the funnel. It's like, whoa, dude, like, let me get there. People are not dumb. They can see there's a link up there. They know there's 4 or 5 billion people, or maybe it's only a billion so far on TikTok. But anyways, regardless, it's a whole hell of a lot of people, and they are very used to using that app. You're not educating them on how to use the app. You are simply giving them an opportunity to figure out if they want to follow you and hear more from you. And if you can hook them with content that's authentic, that's true for you, that you're inspired to create, that they can tell. A lot of times people get their accounts flagged and banned and stuff because they're just copying and duplicating what everybody else is doing, and people get sick of seeing the same thing. That's one of the major reasons why accounts get flagged out here. So the quicker that we can embrace our own message, our own true selves, get more comfortable with the delivery of our message, and start to evolve into telling stories and making points and telling stories. Telling your own story doesn't have to be your life story. It can be snapshots and snippets where what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now, and then the point at the end. The what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now is how to tell the story, and then you add the point at the end. And it's a beautiful, easy, simple process that does get easier as you go. It feels hard at first because it's like a muscle that you've never trained before, right? So yeah, you're like sitting there trying to bench press 1,000 pounds and you've not been in the gym ever, right? And it's like, oh, this is heavy, I'm overwhelmed. Well, no shit. Start with like 2 pounds, right? Which is just, holding the camera up and beginning to talk into it, right? Without even being like, I'm going to post this. Just get in the habit of just doing the thing. Set up the funnel in your first draft form. It doesn't have to be the final version that you're getting married to. You can go in and edit it at any time, right? But just get it good enough to start, rather than trying to be perfect with everything, and focus more on finding your authentic voice and creating things that feel real for you. What would you add to that as we bring this in for a landing? I want to hear final pieces of advice.
I think just what you said, the more authentic you can be with your audience, the people that you want to connect with, the more connection that's actually going to be there. So even if you connect with them and then they do opt into your systems and your emails, if it's not the same person, then that's not what they were in. That's not what they joined up for. They're looking for the same connection. They're looking for the same person. So if you know who that person is and you can like dial that in and be that person like consistently, that's what people are going to want to see. They're not going to want to see like if I pretended that I was like all into this hip hop music and then like they got into my funnel a little more and realized like, no, she's not into like the hip hop music. That's not who she is. Like they're going to be like, it's fake. Like I knew it was fake. So if you can be like real and be authentic and share real things and experiences, and that is going to show as proof that it's a real thing that's going on.
Yeah.
And that you're a real person.
Yeah, because that's like everybody's number one question is this real? It's such a simple question that we all can just answer by just taking the advice that we're talking about right here today on the show. Like that's the number one thing it's the number one skepticism. It's the number one thing that people are worried or concerned about or looking for is, are you real? Is this real? And you can answer that about 90% of that question, right? There's always more that they're going to be skeptical until they really know kind of what you're doing and go through your funnel and do whatever due diligence or, kind of see it through. But 90% of the battle is just right there, like where they're kind of judging, not, you as a person, but are what you do, is what you're doing, saying, and how you're saying it authentic to who you are. That's
Right.
like 90% of the battle. Well said. So final question, what advice did you need to hear that you could give yourself now that you needed to hear at the beginning of this journey? What would you have said to yourself? You sit down next to Kelly back how many ever months ago, and it wasn't even really that long. And when she was like skeptical, when she was like afraid, when she was just feeling all the feels that we all feel when we start this, what did Kelly need to hear? What would you say to her, knowing what you know now?
I would say that you got this, that there's going to be some struggles, but you're going to work through it. You're going to find your voice. You need to work to find your voice, and then you will find your community that comes along with it. And not to put a timeline on it. You don't need to, because someone else was successful in 30 days. If you're not successful in 30 days, that doesn't mean you're never going to be successful. It means that your timeline is different and you are different, and that's totally fine. Just keep going and you got it.
Wow. I'm going to take that to heart. I hope everybody else does as well. That was beautiful. Kelly, it's been an honor. It's been a privilege. It's been legendary. I'm fully woke up now because of you. And I feel super inspired and super grateful for this conversation, and grateful that you did, despite how you were feeling or thinking, follow through and are now having an opportunity, or others are having an opportunity, to experience you and all your experience, your wisdom, your knowledge that you're turning, you're figuring out how you can deliver it in a way that is just powerful, beautiful, and it's just the start. So come back and see me, keep me posted on your journey, and stay legendary, my friend.
Thanks, Dave.
All right.
Bye.
See you later, Kelly. All right, my friends, you can find and follow Kelly over at Learn to Earn Marketing. And the number 2 is the number 2. It's not spelled out. Learn to Earn Marketing over on TikTok and Instagram. One more time, it's Learn to Earn Marketing. You can find and follow Kelly over on TikTok and Instagram. And why do we put these links up? For you to see and find these people that we're interviewing, so you can follow them, not just to learn from them, but also so you can support them, right? So these are all people. I need everybody to realize about this show that these are not gurus who already got it, right? Who are already successful. Every single person on the show are people that are in their journey of becoming successful. This is the real deal. This is the school of hard knocks. This is the real business school, the real school of entrepreneurship. And every single person that's on the show is somebody who's earned it, just like her. Learn to earn, earned it because they went out and they did something. They took the information and the education here and they applied it. That's everything. That inspires me. Now, I never want to talk to another guru again. I want to just stay right in this lane, right with people who are right at the very beginning, because it also helps me to remember what it was like for me to start. And guess what? I love to start. I love to be new at things, and you will too. The further you get on this journey, it will be less scary to be new at something. You'll embrace it more, because that's when you're growing. That's when you're shedding that layer of skin, like a snake or like a butterfly does, and in becoming the newest, best version of yourself. That's what this process is about. Stay in the game. Don't quit before the miracle happens, my friend. And we'll see you back here tomorrow for another episode. Stay legendary. Get out of here. Peace.